The grand amphitheater of the Galactic Council floated in the silent dark between stars, a vast dome of living crystal and woven light that pulsed gently like a slow heartbeat. Inside, the air shimmered with translated voices, scents of alien oils and the soft hum of energy fields holding back the vacuum beyond the walls. Delegates from over 200 species filled the tiered galleries, their forms as varied as the worlds they came from, some scaled, some feathered, some made of shifting mist or hardened resin. All watched the center stage with eyes that glowed, blinked sideways or saw in spectrums no human could imagine. At the very heart of it all stood Lisa Carter. She was small compared to most of them, wrapped in a simple gray uniform with the blue and white symbol of Earth stitched over her heart. Her dark hair was pulled back, her face calm, though her hands trembled just slightly at her sides. She had traveled 6 months in cryosleep just to be here, carrying data no one wanted to hear. She cleared her throat and activated the translator node at her collar. Her voice, steady and clear, echoed through the chamber in a dozen harmonized tones so every species could understand. 3 cycles ago, she began, Earth deep space observatories detected strange energy patterns near the veiled expanse. Not random, not natural, repeating every 17 hours, 32 minutes. The signal carries a structure, like language, but not spoken. It pulses through subspace like a drumbeat. A low murmur rose from the galleries. Some delegates shifted. Others made soft clicking or whistling sounds. We also found wreckage, Lisa continued. Not from any known fleet. The metal was fused with organic matter, bone, maybe, and the radiation signature? It doesn't match any known weapon or engine. She paused, letting the words settle. Then she said what she knew would anger them. We believe something is waking up out there, something old, something that does not answer to the Council. And if you send ships into that region without caution, you risk more than just loss of life. You risk provoking it. Silence followed. Thick. Heavy. Then, from the highest balcony, a figure rose. Zorvax of the Cathari stood tall on 4 jointed legs, his chitinous plates gleaming under the chamber lights. His voice, when it came through the translator, was smooth and sharp as broken glass. Earth delegate, he said. Your species achieved warp travel less than a century ago. You still burn fossil fuels on your homeworld. Your cities choke on your own waste. And now you lecture us about cosmic threats? He turned to the assembly, mandibles spreading in what humans would call a smile. They mistake static for prophecy. Fear for wisdom. Their warning is noise, like a child shouting at thunder. Laughter erupted. Not cruel, but condescending. The Vrothan delegates thumped their armored chests in amusement. The Silthari released shimmering spores that glittered with mirth. Even the usually stoic Gruln made soft bubbling sounds from their fluid-filled masks. Lisa did not flinch. She had expected this. Earth had always been the youngest, the least trusted member of the Council. They called humans the Firemakers, a title that sounded like praise but carried the sting of warning. Too passionate. Too reckless. Too quick to fight. But Lisa knew what she had seen. The data didn't lie. The signal had grown stronger each week. And 2 days before she left Mars orbit, a long-range buoy near the expanse had gone dark after sending one final image. A shadow, larger than a moon, moving against the star field without engines, without light, without sound. She looked up at Zorvax. You have a flagship, she said quietly. The Celestial Edict. It's scheduled for patrol near the veiled expanse next cycle. Zorvax tilted his head. And? Don't send it, Lisa said. Not yet. Not until we understand what's out there. Zorvax laughed, a dry, rattling sound. The Celestial Edict is the pride of the Council. It carries the combined might of 20 species. It is shielded, armed, and blessed by the ancient harmonies. Nothing in the void can touch it. He gestured to the massive view screen above the chamber. It flickered to life, showing the flagship in real time. The Celestial Edict hung in orbit like a blade forged from night itself, over a mile long, its hull smooth and black, lined with glowing veins of plasma. Tiny service drones swarmed around it like insects tending a sleeping god. "See?" Zorvac said. "Your threat is nothing before this. Your warning is noted, Earth delegate." And dismissed. The council speaker, a gelatinous being named Melora, rippled gently. Motion carried. Earth's petition for restricted access to the veiled expanse is denied. Patrol schedule remains unchanged. Lisa nodded once. She had done her duty. She stepped down from the platform, her boots clicking softly on the polished floor. As she walked back to her small delegation pod, she felt hundreds of eyes on her, some pitying, some annoyed, most already forgetting her, but she didn't care. She stopped at the edge of the chamber and looked up at the image of the celestial edict. It looked invincible. Eternal. She remembered the last transmission from buoy Theta 9. Not words, not code, just 3 seconds of audio. A deep, resonant tone like a bell struck underwater, followed by silence so complete it felt like the universe had stopped breathing. Lisa whispered so softly no translator could catch it. "You'll see." Outside the amphitheater, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere beyond them, in the place humans once called the void, something was listening. And it remembered. The council thought Earth was naive. They thought humans were loud, young, and full of stories. They did not know that humanity's oldest story was not of gods or kings, but of survival, of walking out of fire and ice and darkness again and again, and never stopping. Lisa returned to her quarters aboard the UNSC Horizon. A modest vessel docked at the council station. She sent a coded message to Mars Command. Warning delivered. They laughed. Prepare for contact. Then she sat by the viewport watching. The celestial edict drift in the distance, beautiful and blind. 3 days later, it vanished. No explosion. No distress call. No debris. One moment it was there, broadcasting its proud status report. The next, gone. As if the stars themselves had swallowed it whole. The council called emergency sessions. Search fleets launched. Panic, quiet at first, began to spread like mold through the corridors of power. And Lisa Carter, alone in her dim cabin, stared at the empty patch of space where the flagship had been. She did not say, "I told you so." She did not smile. She simply opened a new file on her datapad and typed 2 words, "It's awake." The silence after the celestial edict vanished was louder than any explosion. At first, the Galactic Council refused to believe it. They checked their sensors again and again. They pinged the flagship's transponder. They sent scout drones into the exact coordinates where it had last been seen. Nothing answered. The space around the veiled expanse was empty, too empty. Even background radiation seemed muted, as if the void itself was holding its breath. Panic spread slowly, like cold water rising in a sealed room. The Cathari demanded answers. The Silthari whispered prayers in harmonic frequencies. The Vrothan tightened their armor and readied their war fleets, though no enemy had been named. Only Earth remained quiet. Lisa Carter did not speak at the emergency session. She simply sat in her delegation pod, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the central holo display showing the empty sector. Meanwhile, far from the council station, near the ragged edge of known space, a small human boy named Odyssey 7 drifted in silence. It was no larger than a shuttle, built for long-term observation, not combat. Its only crew was Mara Ellis, a 32-year-old systems engineer with grease-stained fingers and a mind that saw patterns where others saw noise. She had been stationed here for 8 months, monitoring deep space anomalies as part of Earth's early warning network. Mara had heard the Council's broadcast. She had heard Lisa's warning, and she had seen the same strange energy pulses Lisa described. But while the Council ignored them, Mara recorded everything. On the day the celestial edict disappeared, Mara was running a routine diagnostic when her console flashed red. Not an alarm, just a soft, repeating signal on a frequency usually reserved for cosmic background hum. She frowned. It wasn't random. It pulsed in a steady rhythm. 3 beats, a pause, 2 beats, a longer pause. Like a heartbeat with a stutter. She pulled up the spectral analysis. The signal wasn't electromagnetic. It was something else, subspace resonance layered with organic harmonics. It reminded her of whale songs she'd heard as a child. back when oceans still teemed with life. Then she cross-referenced it with Lisa's original data packet. The match was exact. Same rhythm, same structure, same eerie calm beneath the pattern. Mara's hands moved fast over the controls. She boosted the buoy's receiver gain, filtered out stellar interference, and isolated the source. It came from deep inside the veiled expanse, right where the celestial edict had vanished. But there was something new. The signal wasn't just repeating. It was changing. Every 12 hours, it added a new tone, subtle, almost hidden. Mara ran it through a linguistic decoder she'd built for fun during downtime. The program, trained on ancient human languages, flagged the pattern as resembling proto-cuneiform mixed with early Dravidian phonetics, languages dead for thousands of years. That made no sense. Unless the signal wasn't alien. Unless it was human. Mara stared at the screen, her pulse quickening. She opened a secure channel to Earth Command. The message was short. Odyssey 7 detecting structured resonance from veiled expanse. Matches Lisa's warning. Signal shows linguistic markers. Not distress. Not attack. Feels like communication. They're not gone. They've been taken. She hesitated, then added one more line. Send someone who listens, not someone who shoots. Back at the council station, chaos grew. Zorvax demanded Earth hand over all data related to the veiled expanse. When Lisa refused, citing sovereignty, he accused humans of hiding something. You warned us, he hissed during a closed session. You knew this would happen. Did you do this? Lisa met his gaze without blinking. If we could make a flagship vanish without a trace, do you think we'd be sitting here begging for your respect? The logic stung. Zorvax fell silent, but suspicion festered. Some council members began calling for Earth's suspension from the assembly. Others whispered that humans had awakened an ancient weapon and lost control of it. Only Melora, the gelatinous speaker, remained calm. She reviewed Mara's transmission, leaked by a sympathetic human aide, and saw what others missed. The signal wasn't hostile. It was curious. Still, no one acted, until Earth did. 3 days after the disappearance, the UNSC Persephone launched from lunar dry dock. It was not a warship. It carried no missiles, no plasma cannons, no boarding parties. Instead, its hold was filled with sensor arrays, linguistic databases, and cultural archives spanning 10,000 years of human history, from cave paintings to symphonies, from seed banks to star charts. Command of the mission went to Mara Ellis, promoted on the spot. She would pilot the ship herself. And with her flew Dr. Nina Ross, a quiet woman in her 40s who had spent her life studying how meaning is made, not just in words, but in rhythms, in silence, in the space between sounds. Nina had read Mara's report. She believed the signal wasn't just language, it was memory. As the Persephone slipped into warp, Lisa watched from Mars orbit. She didn't pray. Humans had stopped praying to gods long ago, but she hoped. Hope was their oldest weapon. The journey to the veiled expanse took 11 days. During that time, Mara and Nina studied the signal endlessly. They played it through different filters, mapped its harmonics, even tried singing along to see if it responded. Nothing. But on the 10th night, as the ship coasted through neutral space, Nina made a discovery. The pauses in the signal weren't empty. They contained micro-vibrations, so faint they'd been dismissed as noise. When amplified, they formed a secondary layer, a slow, mournful tone that rose and fell like a sigh. It's not just talking, Nina said, her voice hushed. It's grieving. Mara looked up from her console. Grieving what? Maybe us, Nina replied. When the Persephone finally dropped out of warp at the edge of the veiled expanse, the stars looked wrong. Not missing, just shifted. As if space had been folded and stitched back together by unseen hands. And then they saw it. Not a ship, not a station, a structure. It hung in the void like a cathedral grown from bone and quartz, its spires curling toward distant galaxies. Light moved through it, not reflected but generated from within, pulsing in time with the signal. It was alive, or had been once. Mara held her breath. The celestial edict was nowhere in sight. Then, without warning, the structure reacted. Tendrils of soft blue light uncoiled from its surface, stretching toward the Persephone like fingers reaching for a long-lost child. Alarms blared, but not danger alarms. Proximity alerts. Gentle, curious. Nina stood slowly. Don't run, she whispered. Don't hide. Show it who we are, Mara nodded. She opened all external comms, disabled shields, and played the oldest human recording they had. A lullaby sung by a Neolithic mother to her child. Preserved in ice for 12,000 years. The structure stilled. Then, from its core, light bloomed, and out of the darkness, the celestial edict emerged, whole, untouched, but empty. Its hatches were open. Its lights were off. No life signs, no bodies, no signs of struggle. As the Persephone drifted closer, Nina noticed something on the flagship's hull. Symbols. Etched into the metal, glowing faintly. Not Cathari, not Silthari, ancient human Proto-Sumerian. Indus Valley script, even older. Symbols from Göbekli Tepe, from the caves of Lascaux. The structure wasn't speaking to the galaxy, it was speaking to Earth, and it remembered them. Mara sent the images back to Lisa. The message was simple: they're not gone. They're waiting. And it knows us. Light years away, Lisa read the words and finally smiled. The Council had laughed, but the stars had been listening all along. The Galactic Council gathered again, but this time the air was thick with fear, not pride. The amphitheater lights dimmed as if sensing the mood. Delegates shifted in their seats, mandibles clenched, sensors twitching. The celestial edict was still gone. No fleet had found it. No signal had returned. And now Earth had gone silent too. No broadcasts, no replies, not even a courtesy ping. Zorvac stood at the center, his usual confidence frayed at the edges. Earth is hiding something, he declared, voice sharp. They warned us. Their ship vanished into the same region. Now they refuse to speak. This is no coincidence. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some agreed. Others wondered if Earth had been destroyed. None imagined the truth. Then the main view screen flickered, not by Council command, but by Earth's hand. Lisa Carter appeared, not in her gray uniform, but in simple, dark clothing, standing before a starfield. Behind her, the UNSC Persephone drifted, its hull still dusted with stardust from the veiled expanse. I have not come to argue, Lisa said, her voice calm but firm. I have come to show you what you refuse to see. Before anyone could object, she transmitted the data, not just numbers or scans. Not just symbols. She sent the memory. The chamber filled with images. Earth as it was 50,000 years ago, green, wild, alive. Humans in furs and bone jewelry standing on wooden ships that sailed the sky. Songs echoing through forests, then through space. Star maps drawn in ash and blood, pointing to places no Council ship had ever dared go. Gasps rippled through the galleries. The Silthari dimmed their bioluminescence in awe. The Vrothan lowered their armored heads. Even Zorvac stood frozen, his mandibles slack. You called us young, Lisa continued, but we walked among the stars before your ancestors crawled from the sea. We did not build empires. We built bridges. We sang to the dark and the dark sang back. Then something happened. A great silence. A forgetting. We fell back to our world, lost our way, but never our memory. It slept in our bones. In our songs. In our dreams, she paused. The structure you call a threat, it is not alien. It is ours, a guardian left behind when we vanished. It tested your flagship, not to destroy it, but to see if your people could remember. They could not. So it holds them safe, waiting. The Council was silent. For the first time in centuries, no one spoke over another. No one laughed. Then Melora, the speaker, rippled gently. Why show us this now? Because you are not our enemy, Lisa said. You are lost like we were. You see the universe as something to control, not to listen to. The echo does not speak in weapons or treaties. It speaks in memory, in harmony, and it chose to answer us. Not because we are strong, but because we remembered how to listen. Zorvac finally found his voice. Prove it. Bring back the celestial edict. Return our people, Lisa nodded. We will, but not by force. By invitation, she turned to the camera. Mara, Nina, it's time. On the screen, the view shifted to the Persephone's shuttle bay. There the dark seed pod floated, humming softly. Nina Ross stood beside it, her hand resting on its surface. She began to sing, a low, wordless melody that seemed to vibrate in the chest rather than the ears. As she sang, the pod opened, not with a hiss or a crack, but like a flower at dawn. Inside, light swirled, golden, warm, alive. From it rose a projection not of data but of feeling. Every delegate in the chamber felt it at once. The warmth of a campfire under ancient stars, the weight of a child in a mother's arms, the quiet joy of watching a river flow. It was not a message. It was an experience, and then the echo spoke, not through sound but through shared memory. Images flooded their minds. Not just human history, but moments from their own species' pasts. Forgotten lullabies, first fires, the first time they looked up and wondered. The echo had been listening to all of them. It had been waiting for any of them to remember. Only humans had. Tears, real or chemical, depending on the species, filled the chamber. The Cathari envoy bowed his head. The Silthari released spores that glowed with sorrow and hope. Zorvac sank to his lowest joint, a gesture of deep humility among his people. "We were wrong," he said, voice raw. "We called you children. But you are the elders." Lisa did not smile. She did not gloat. "We are not elders. We are survivors, and we offer you a choice. Come with us. Not as conquerors, but as students. Learn to listen. Or stay silent and remain lost." The council had no answer, not yet. But for the first time, they were quiet enough to hear the stars. Back on the Persephone, Mara watched the transmission end. "Do you think they'll understand?" Nina touched the pod again. "They don't have to understand everything, just enough to stop fearing the dark." The pod pulsed gently. Inside, new seeds formed, tiny, glowing, each carrying a fragment of the old human song. Earth would not keep this knowledge. It would share it, not as a weapon, not as a secret, but as a lullaby for the galaxy. And somewhere in the void, the echo waited, not to judge, but to welcome, because memory was not meant to be buried, it was meant to be passed on. The Persephone hung in the silent dark, dwarfed by the living structure and the ghostly silhouette of the celestial edict. Mara Ellis kept the engines at idle, her hands steady on the controls, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Nina Ross floated beside her, eyes locked on the strange symbols glowing along the flagship's hull. They pulsed softly like embers breathing. "It's not damage," Nina said. "It's writing, and it's meant for us." She pulled up a side-by-side comparison on the main screen. The symbols matched fragments from Earth's oldest sites. Carvings found in Turkey, tablets from the Indus Valley, ochre marks on cave walls in Africa. None of these cultures had ever met. Yet here in deep space, their signs were woven together into a single message. Mara activated a low-power scan. The symbols weren't etched. They were grown, part of the metal itself, as if the ship's hull had remembered how to speak human. "It recognized our lullaby," Nina whispered. "That's why it showed us the edict. It wanted us to see. They suited up. Not for danger, but for respect. If this was a conversation, they would walk into it like guests, not soldiers." Mara piloted a small shuttle to the Celestial Edict's main airlock. The doors opened without resistance, as if expecting them. Inside, the corridors were dark but clean. No blood, no scorch marks, no signs of panic. It was as if the entire crew had simply stepped out. Nina ran a hand along the wall. "Look." Tiny glyphs shimmered under her touch. More ancient human script, mixed with patterns that looked like star maps. But not of the current sky. These constellations were wrong, shifted, old. "This isn't just memory," Nina said. "It's a record. A library." They found the bridge. Empty chairs faced a massive viewport. On the main console, a single symbol glowed. A spiral like a galaxy, but with a human hand at its center. Mara recognized it from a Neolithic tomb in Ireland. It meant return. Suddenly, the structure outside pulsed brighter. A new tone filled the ship, not through speakers, but through the bones of the hull itself. Deep. Resonant. Familiar. Nina closed her eyes. It's the same frequency as the lullaby, but lower. Older. Back on the Persephone, the ship's AI flagged a data surge from the structure, not a transmission. A gift. Terabytes of information poured into their systems. Images, sounds, star charts, genetic sequences. Most of it unreadable at first. But one file opened easily. It showed Earth, not as it was now, but as it had been 50,000 years ago. Green, wild, full of rivers and forests. And in the skies above, ships. Not crude rockets, but graceful vessels shaped like birds and fish, made of wood, bone, and woven light. Humans stood on their decks, not in uniforms, but in furs and beads, singing to the stars. Mara gasped. They were out here, long before history began. Nina nodded, tears in her eyes. They didn't vanish, they left. and they left guardians behind. The structure wasn't a weapon. It was a sentinel, waiting for humanity to find its way back to the stars. And when the celestial edict entered its space, it tested the crew, not with violence but with memory. It showed them visions of Earth's forgotten past. Most could not understand. Their minds rejected it, so the structure held them in stasis, safe but asleep, until someone came who could listen. That someone was human. Mara sent the data packet to Lisa. The message was short. We were never alone. We were just forgotten. The echo is real, and it's ours. Light years away, Lisa received the transmission. She didn't share it with the Council, not yet. She knew they would see only power, only secrets to steal. They would send warships, not scholars. But Earth had a choice now. On Mars, scientists gathered in silent awe as the data unfolded. Linguists matched the symbols to proto-languages. Astrophysicists traced the star maps to real locations, places where no known civilization had ever been. Biologists studied the genetic sequences and found human DNA, but altered, stronger, tuned to cosmic radiation, capable of surviving in vacuum for short periods. Humanity had once been more than it was now, and the echo had kept their legacy alive. Meanwhile, aboard the Persephone, Nina made a decision. She returned to the bridge of the celestial edict and placed her palm on the spiral symbol. She began to sing. The same lullaby, but slower, deeper, with words from a language no one had spoken in 10,000 years. The structure responded. Light poured from its core, not blinding, but warm. The celestial edict shuddered gently, then drifted toward the structure like a child returning to its mother. From deep within the lattice of bone and crystal, something stirred. Not a weapon, not a monster, a seed. A massive pod, smooth and dark, detached from the structure and floated toward the Persephone. It stopped just outside the shuttle bay, humming softly. Mara opened the bay doors. The pod entered on its own, settling onto the deck with a sound like a sigh. Nina approached it. There were no controls, no seams, just a single glyph on its surface. The same spiral, but now with two hands holding it. It's a gift, Nina said. Inside they would find more than knowledge. They would find a way forward. A path to become what they once were. But first they had to tell the galaxy the truth. Not with force, not with fear, with memory. As the Persephone turned toward home, the structure dimmed behind them. Its work done for now. The celestial edict remained, cradled in its arms, its crew still sleeping, waiting for the day they too could understand. And far away, on a council station buzzing with fear and rumor, Lisa Carter prepared her next move. She would not beg for a seat at the table. She would bring the table itself. Because humanity was not the youngest species in the galaxy. It was the oldest, and it was waking up. The council chamber was quiet, but not the cold silence of fear. This was different, softer. Like the hush after rain, delegates sat not in judgment but in wonder. Even Zorvax kept his mandibles still, his usual sharpness replaced by something new, respect. Lisa Carter stood once more at the center, not as a petitioner, but as a guide. She did not wear the blue and white of Earth's delegation. Instead, she wore simple cloth woven from flax grown in the first off-world greenhouse on Mars. On her chest was no emblem, only a small spiral carved from riverstone, the same symbol seen on the celestial edict. "You offered us a seat," she said, her voice clear and calm. "We do not want it." A ripple passed through the chamber. Some leaned forward, others stilled completely. "A seat means you decide who belongs," Lisa continued. "Who speaks? Who is heard? We have spent too long waiting for permission to be seen. Now we offer something else, a covenant." She raised her hand. Behind her, the view screen lit with new images, not of warships or weapons, but of the seed pod from the Echo. It floated in the Persephone's bay, now open wide, releasing dozens of smaller pods, each no larger than a human hand. They drifted gently, glowing with soft light. "These carry what we have learned," Lisa said. "Not just human memory, but the Echo's gift. Ways to heal broken worlds, to grow food in dead soil, to speak without words, to listen to the silence between stars. They are not for sale, not for trade, not for control. They are for those who will care for them." Melora spoke, her gelatinous form shimmering with emotion. "What do you ask in return?" "Nothing," Lisa said. "Except this, you stop seeing the unknown as a threat. You teach your young to wonder, not to conquer. And when you find something you do not understand, you do not fire first. You listen. Sorvax rose slowly. And the Celestial Edict? Our people? They are safe, Lisa replied. The echo holds them in dreamless sleep, waiting for understanding. When your species learns to hear the old songs, not just ours but your own, you will find them awake, whole and changed. She paused. But you do not need to wait. Come with us. Not as masters, not as students. As partners, the council did not vote. There was no need. One by one, species stepped forward. The Syltheri offered their harmonic archives. The Vrothan pledged their deep space scouts to map the Echo's domain. Even the Gruln, silent for centuries, released a stream of data, ancient star chants from their ocean depths, echoing human lullabies in rhythm and tone. It was not alliance. It was kinship. Weeks later, near the veiled expanse, a new gathering formed, not in a grand amphitheater but in open space. The Persephone floated beside the Celestial Edict, now cradled in the Echo's arms. Around them, ships from a dozen species hung in respectful silence. Mara Ellis piloted a small shuttle toward the Echo's core. Beside her sat Nina Ross holding one of the seed pods. This one was different. It pulsed with the combined songs of Earth, Sylther, Vroth, and more. As they approached, the Echo opened a path, a tunnel of light and bone, warm and humming. Inside, the air felt like standing in sunlight after a long winter. At the center, they found the crew of the Celestial Edict. They were not sleeping. They were dreaming together, linked by the Echo's light, their minds woven into a shared vision of Earth's past, their own histories, and something new, a future where all voices mattered. Nina placed the seed pod among them. It sank into the floor, roots spreading like veins of gold. The Echo pulsed brighter, and then it began to sing, not one song, many. Human lullabies mixed with Syltheri harmonics, Vrothan drumbeats, Cathari chittering chants. It was messy, imperfect, alive. Back on the council station, Lisa watched the feed. She did not smile. She did not cry. She simply nodded as if greeting an old friend returned. Earth had not won a war. It had remembered a truth, and in remembering, it had awakened the galaxy. Months passed. The seeds took root. On dying worlds, forests grew from dust. On war-torn moons, children sang songs their grandparents had never known. The Echo's lattice expanded, not as a fortress, but as a garden where ships could dock, minds could rest, and memories could be shared. Lisa returned to Earth only once. She walked barefoot on soil that had not known rain in decades. She planted a seed from the Echo. By morning, green shoots pushed through the cracked ground. She did not stay. Her place was among the stars now. Not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, as a listener. And far out in the deep, the stars hummed an old human lullaby. Finally heard, finally answered, finally shared. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. It had reminded it how to dream,